Boxing truth here. All right, let's talk about it. Let's talk about this hype job that everybody is ranting and raving about. Everyone's so impressed, and yet he can't even knock out a washed, past his prime Nonito Donaire. Now, Inoue is coming off a life and death struggle against a washed up, way past it Nonito Donaire, who hadn't looked good in a number of years. Sure, he still possesses knockout power in the left hand. Proved it in the fight against Inoue. But let's face it, let's be honest here. When has Donaire when has he remotely looked good in his past few fights? I mean, we're talking about a guy that lost to Diego Magdaleno. We're talking about a guy that looked old and faded against Carl Frampton. At a higher weight class, granted. But Inoue, who's considered top 3 by most, considered the best fighter in the world by some, and you can't even look good. You can't even really make that much of a statement against a washed up, past it Donaire. The best fighters in the world don't struggle with those type of opponents. Now, Donaire, obviously he was motivated for this fight. He was threatened by this fight, and he pulled out one of his better performances in quite some time in a losing effort, but really exposed a lot of flaws of Inoue in this fight. I mean, let's pump the brakes on Inoue right now. Let's pump the brakes on saying he's the best fighter in the world, that he's better than Canelo, that he's better than Usyk, that he's better than Lomachenko. Let's just pump the brakes on that a bit. Let's just say that he's a good fighter, but he's still growing, he's still developing, and he still has a lot to improve on. Because he's not at that complete level like I would say a Canelo. He's not at that level of a Pacquiao or even a Alexander Usyk right now. Those guys are more complete fighters. Those guys have less flaws. Those guys have less weaknesses. And Inoue, in this fight in Donaire, showed that he ain't got no damn head movement. That he's a sucker for a straight right hand down the pipe. That he's a sitting duck for a straight right hand down the pipe. Got touched up a little too much in this fight against Donaire. Yes, I'm aware of the injury in the second round, but that was caused by Donaire's left hook. Shouldn't have gotten caught by that left hook to begin with, or been hit that hard, or gotten rocked like that in this fight. Inoue won the fight. I had it 8-4 in terms of rounds, plus the knockdown. But it wasn't his best performance. It showed that he still has room to grow, that he's really not at that level in terms of top 3 pound for pound, that there's still room for improvement, that there's still work to be done, and that's fine. Inoue is a good fighter, but I don't understand where all this overhyping is coming from. All right, he knocked out a vacant belt holder in 2 rounds. He knocked out a faded old champion that can't punch in Novarez. He freaking destroyed an average at best Payano, but he's considered top 3, even the best fighter in the world by some, based on those credentials. Based off that, he's considered the best fighter in the world because he knocked out Payano. It's just amazing how some boxing fans are just overly impressed by not really that much of a statement type wins. I mean, if he did that to Gallo Estrada, if he did that to Roman Gonzalez, if he did that to Rungvisai, if he does that to Luis Neri, then I'll be very impressed. But he can't even do that to a washed Donaire, who has seen better days and hasn't really had a good performance in a while. So let's pump the brakes on Naoya Inoue. He is a good fighter, but he's been very careful with the matchmaking. He's been cherry picking. He's been ducking and dodging elite threats at around his weight classes. He's not fighting the best in the world, and until he does that, he really shouldn't be getting any top 5 pound for pound billing. Not even top 10. I'll put him in the top 10 because of his so far accomplishments. I mean, I ain't going to argue if you got him in the top 10, but top 3, that's really pushing it. He's not among the elites of the elites in the pound-for-pound list. Not yet. Still room for improvement. show a lot of wrinkles in the armor in his last fight. And after watching this last fight, man, I really hope Naoya Estrada gets a shot at this chump, man. Because I'm telling you, man, Estrada ain't going to lay down. It ain't going to be an easy night. And he ain't no wash fighter either. Guy, do me a favor and drop this chump. Hopefully Inoue will stop ducking you, actually acknowledges you, and actually gets in the ring with you to prove that he's among the elites of the lower weight classes. Naoya Estrada might beat this chump. He won't even fight Rungvisai, who's getting up there in age. But yeah, I want to say he's the best fighter in the world, man. Get the fuck out of here, Inoue. Overrated as fuck. This is Boxing Truth. I'm out.